to you on this glorious Monday of a sunrise. We have just been looking at some pretty incredible live pictures at this hour from around. There's fresh snow up on the mountains and the Cascades. This is the sunrise over on the Oregon coast in Astoria. Look at all those colors.
That's amazing.
Yeah, chilly morning we're starting off with. A lot of places in the 20s and 30s, and yes, we talked a lot of snow coming this week in the mountains if you're a skier or a boarder. Get excited.
Yeah, it is, because our meteorologist Joe Ranieri was saying, hey, if everything comes true, perhaps the resorts may open in time for Thanksgiving. A lot of holiday boarders and skiers would love that.
Yeah, Morgan Romero joining us this morning from the newsroom. Welcome back, lady. We love having you. This is an all-girl show. I like it.
Yes, it is. Drew and Rod, they're sleeping in this morning.
Yeah, so we were talking about, of course, the biggest story ever. A lot of us waking up on Saturday morning to, the buzz of the phone. That's what I heard. I kind of tuned out because I'm like, I know I have all my alerts set. I don't need to watch these, numbers and guys rolling their sleeves up in the khakis. Like I'll find out when I find out.
Steve
and
Kornacki,
it was that buzz.
perhaps?
Yeah, Steve Kornacki's khakis.
MSNBC.
Yeah, it killed me because I don't know about you guys, but like refreshing my results every 30 seconds throughout the week and figuring, we're not going to know Pennsylvania until Friday. We may not know North Carolina, Nevada. And then my mom calls me like 8:30 or 9 in the morning on Saturday. And the one day I could sleep in, after working sunrise all week. But I said, this is a very well worth reason to wake me up.
Yeah, big news.
Yeah.
We found out. We're just kind of checking in with you guys. How does it feel to kind of know the results after, this many days of watching those ballots being counted? In a lot of states, they are still being counted. Joe Biden projected to be president-elect now with well over 270 electoral votes. I believe he's at 290 now, and President Trump at 214. Of course, a lot of lawsuits and, possibly a Supreme Court case in the works. So we will see what happens with that. We had a great expert from Willamette University on talking about those lawsuits today. But checking in with you guys, no matter who you voted for, because our country is still, half of people voted for Biden, half of people voted for Trump. How are you guys doing? Was it an okay weekend, just finally knowing a result? Or whatever you want to talk about. Let us know, you guys, in the comments.
I am looking right here. It took me a while to get into the stream today. I don't know why. I think my brain is just slow.
I do wonder if there's more relief, just because the uncertainty in and of itself can cause so much stress and anxiety. Mm-hmm. Like, I know personally, like I said, like staying up for hours and refreshing results on Twitter, following people like our colleagues in Georgia and just staying nonstop on top of it. Maybe it's relieving for people to kind of disconnect for a little bit when their attention was so focused on that.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. You know what? Did anybody see Saturday Night Live?
Yes.
With Dave Chappelle? Right, so he hosted Saturday Night Live 4 years ago when President Trump won, and he was back this time when Biden is the projected winner. And I loved what he said. At the end of that whole big monologue, he was basically talking about, you remember that feeling, everybody who voted, for Hillary Clinton last time, you remember how bad you felt? Well, there's half the country who feels like that right now. Remember that feeling. Like, don't hate each other, hate that feeling, and find a way to move past it. And I was like, yes, because we all have to work together. The one thing I absolutely agree with, when Biden got up there and talked, he was like, we have to stop treating each other as enemies, right? In order to get anything done and to move forward and to feel decent about our neighbors, whatever their political persuasion, we have to stop treating each other as enemies. And if we can do that, that will be a relief, Morgan, 100%.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think, and when we had the pastor on last week and the folks that we've been talking to in stories that KGW has been covering throughout the last couple of weeks, is this, there has been so much attack on people's character for disagreeing with you. And it's become so personal. But I think what these results show is just how divided our nation is, right? If half the people voted for one platform and half voted for another, it just shows how deeply divided we are. But my colleagues this weekend were out in the celebrations in downtown Portland. I covered it on the news at 5:30 and 6:30 of people joining in these car parades at Pioneer Square and just celebrating. And one of the women that one of our photojournalists talked to just started crying, and she felt like she was breathing this sigh of relief and said she felt she hadn't been able to celebrate for the last 4 years, and this was something to celebrate. So there were parties in downtown, and then, on the other side, there are a lot of people, half the country, who supports the president and doesn't feel like this was fair and feels like, maybe there was some fraud and kind of, of course, those claims haven't been substantiated at this point, but they do support him and they want to make sure that the process was fair and balanced. So they held rallies called Stop the Steal this weekend all throughout in Salem and in Vancouver, wanting to fight the results of the election. So until things, like I said, people are feeling a little bit relieved, but also until things are official and certified and there's those recounts and all of the states are tallied, maybe there will still be these fights, but we do need to find a way to be unified in the meantime.
Brenda, looking at Don Killinger.
I was just going to say,
do you want to read that one?
Go ahead.
She says relief, but still a good bit of concern, both because Trump is not standing down, but also I am Republican and I'm concerned about Democratic initiatives I don't agree with. Hope Biden can successfully continue bipartisan agreement making.
I love that comment.
I do too.
It is just reaching
Super
across the
thoughtful.
aisle, and it's very, yes. Tracy Chambliss saying kind of the same thing. Good morning. Good luck to Biden. If he is able to make change, then we will know the truth. Terry Hogenkamp says it feels like a great weight has been lifted from my shoulders. Let's see.
Kathy says, I feel like the whole world has breathed a sigh of relief. Deborah weighing in says, how can you feel good when you know there has been so much cheating? She's basically saying, don't you want to get to the bottom of this?
And they will. And I thought the interview that you did with that, was he a political science professor or constitutional law professor at Willamette University? And he said, at least in Pennsylvania, there's 35,000 ballots that are in question they were mail-in ballots. And, just like in Oregon, there's a postmark date of you have to get it in before October 27th to get it postmarked. And then it comes in the mail whenever it comes in the mail to the elections office. And there's that big chunk in Pennsylvania that came Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of this past week. And those are in question. But those ballots aren't even in the count so far. And Joe Biden is up by, I think he said, about 46,000 votes, not counting those ones in question. So while they go through that process of determining if there are any illegitimate ballots, that's not even, listed in the tally so far. I thought that was a point that I hadn't heard yet.
Yeah. The other thing that I think is interesting that I've seen many people weigh in on, and I know that this has been a point of discussion in my own family, is looking at Vice President-elect Kamala Harris as the first woman to reach that spot and the first woman of color to reach that particular spot. My family's all mixed up. My mom was white. My dad was black. My kid's father is Chinese and Japanese, so we always called them the UN babies. So they're multiracial, right? And I grew up as a biracial kid, and back in the day, you were either black or white. You didn't get to say that you were biracial. There was only one box when you check things out. It was either black or white. And I always felt kind of like, what? If I say I'm black, then I look at my mom, who is a huge part of my life, and I'm like, biologically, I'm both. So my daughter was basically making that point this weekend. I think that she kind of feels emotional, and she is a stoic one, but I think that she feels emotional and proud to see somebody who has a mixed background like her be in that position. And I don't think that you can understate that. It's not just the young girls. My daughter's 22. That stuff is really meaningful for people who watch.
Yeah, we talk about representation all the time. I mean, we had that little girl on. I started tearing up watching her, and just number one, how articulate she was, but also if you don't see something, if you don't see someone in a position of power or doing something that you aspire to be, and there's no representation, whether it's women or people of color, how will you ever feel like you can attain that dream, you know? And so this is so monumental. And I do think, I was listening to NPR this morning, and I think the story of Kamala Harris is being a bit overshadowed by the litigation that's playing out and the uncertainty of the election. But we need to take a moment to really, political affiliations aside, relish in the fact that there is a woman in the vice presidency, and she is a woman of color, and it is an amazing thing.
Yeah, this year there are lots of little avenues that we could go down. There's so much to talk about when it comes to this election.
Let's see. Martha Johns just weighed in. She says there's been so much division these past 4 years. Being Native American, not so much for us, we are used to it. But for other nationalities, we've watched the division amongst them. I'm hopeful these next 4 years will bring positive change. And where was that other comment? Jennifer Taft, good morning, Jennifer. She's one of our longtime loyal viewers. She says she's still a little worried. There are many malicious and frightening people who are still getting emails that say to fight or defend a lot of disinformation out there.
Did you read Patty Maples yet?
No.
She says, so celebrating Biden in the streets because he was elected, that was incredibly not right because COVID just disappeared like that. Not smart. And that is absolutely something that I heard the networks discussing as they were watching these people. Many of them had masks, but they certainly were not socially distanced. And, you know, you're like, okay, I get it. They were talking about it being kind of a release valve with people like going to celebrate, but you know, we've had some monumental things happen, and we are in the middle of a pandemic. And that's
and if you live in Oregon, actually this Wednesday, there's going to be a little clampdown of restrictions if you're in Multnomah, Marion, Jackson, Umatilla, and Malheur counties. Restaurants will have to go back to only 50 people, including employees, for max capacity indoors. No more visits to nursing homes or long-term care facilities. Other kind of social gathering places like bowling alleys or pools or gyms, they will have to go down to 50 people because our case numbers are so high. We almost had 1,000 daily case numbers on Saturday at 988, which was pretty shocking to see.
Do you remember back in the day when we were like counting by, well, there's 120
singles,
cases or lower, right? That has changed.
Anna Oliveris, I was worried about COVID as well while watching the celebrations. I celebrated at home with my immediate family. Tim Rupert, yes, it is not certified yet. That is what counts. You are right. And we've done a couple of pieces on exactly how that happens. Each county, has to certify their results and submit it to the state. And then the popular vote will determine what electors in your state will go to the Electoral College, and they meet in each state and they cast their vote. Then it goes to Congress. And I think the official certification date is December 14th for the country.
Yep.
So, and then Inauguration Day, January 20th.
Morgan, I was joking and calling you professor when you were giving us the civics lesson today.
Yeah, normally I get Captain Morgan, but Professor Romero works great too. It was really fascinating. So, I came in today and our executive producer Celeste said this would be a really great opportunity to talk people through what the next steps are. And traditionally in a normal election year, which I guess, I don't know, could you ever call it normal? But in an election year unlike this, we wouldn't be talking about all the other things we're talking about in regards to, so many recounts and lawsuits being filed. So the recounts and lawsuits aside, I can talk about that too. But there is this process, and Nina, you touched on it, of once states and Congress kind of go through these important steps, there are certain dates and deadlines. But looking at certification of results, and we've been talking about this all along, is the election results and Joe Biden being our president-elect, we have to kind of say president-elect until these things are certified because different states have different timelines as to do that. Some states start this week. Some states won't certify results until December. So until then, they're going to continue to count ballots. And you mentioned Pennsylvania, for example. A lot of states had to build their infrastructure to be able to handle the unprecedented number of mail-in ballots. In Oregon, we have a great system, right? So we know postmark your ballots by October 27th, and so then they're counted prior to Election Day. But Washington State, for example, they can postmark their ballots on Election Day.
So they're coming in
and that's
well after, yeah.
Right. So that's what Pennsylvania did. And obviously it's a battleground state, so that's where the controversy lies. And that's where one lawsuit that Trump filed is in Pennsylvania. And it may have some merit, we'll see, because initially the state said that they weren't going to do that, and then they allowed for it because of the pandemic. So anyway, but that being said, you've got these votes that you have to certify, these results. And then from there, you have the Electoral College. And those people were already put in this position, and it's kind of a ceremonial vote. In a sense, you sometimes have faithless electors, a few off. We had some in the Hillary Clinton election, Trump as well, who don't vote for the candidate. But that is super rare, and it really doesn't make an impact. So then it's kind of the ceremonial vote. And then at that point, again, that's December 14th. And then January 6th, Congress will meet to officially count the electoral votes. And that's when they'll declare the president. But I laughed earlier because I took AP government, right? I didn't learn what this archivist of the United States is. I don't know if you guys knew what that was. But
no, I mean, honestly, and if I did, it was way long ago, and I completely forgotten about it until you mentioned it on the show this morning.
Yeah, it's interesting. The results from the Electoral College go to the archivist actually first before they get to Congress, before Congress then declares the president. And then, Inauguration Day comes 2 weeks later. So, yeah, January 20th. But yeah, no, like I was saying, the recounts and the lawsuits, all of that is going to continue to play out. And again, some of it has merit. Some of the lawsuits have already been thrown out. Others, the Trump campaign has withdrawn. And then others, there may be some argument in court to see what happens there. But so far, it's so important for us to note that there has been no evidence of voter fraud at this point. And these Stop the Steal rallies, that's really what people are fighting to get to the bottom of. And I know that states and federal courts and state courts will look at it. There have been lawsuits regarding observers watching poll workers count ballots, and those they were allowed to get a little bit closer in Philadelphia, for example. But yeah, ultimately, we'll see how that plays out. But again, no evidence and no substantiated claims of voter fraud.
So do you think that from here on out, our next election, do you think that we'll get some election reform as far as the way we vote? I remember when Oregon went to vote by mail. I thought it was the most convenient, easy peasy thing on the planet. I was like, this is great. But having some standardized way to do it, if that's the way we're going to open it up to more people, and looking to the states who do it and have done it for a long time, what can other states learn from them? Do you think that we will reform the way that we vote for all kinds of things?
100%. Yeah. I mean, it's so clear. And I've heard from so many people, which is wonderful, on both sides, Republican and Democrat, saying, you know what we won at this time is so many more people voted. You just had an opportunity to cast your ballot, whether you're, disabled or you're older or it's terrible weather. Like having to go to a polling
and
place
you have to work
is so archaic now.
Yeah.
And, way down in the future, when they figure out really the security, we'll be able to vote on our phones eventually. But, this first step is the mail-in ballot. And, it just got so many more millions of people to be able to cast their ballot. And that should be celebrated no matter what side you're on. So I absolutely think this is the last election that we're going to have this kind of there's this percentage doing it this way, there's this percentage doing it that way. There's probably always going to be polling places maybe for those last minute folks. I mean, just like you can go, to your county elections office here if something happened with your ballot or, and you can go vote in person at the elections office. But yes, I think we've got to update it. And I was just reading here, Fox News is reporting President Trump is planning to bring back his large-scale rallies to focus on this ongoing litigation as he challenges the results of the election. So he's planning some rallies across the country. He also has a fundraiser to support the legal effort. So people can donate their personal money to this effort to find that evidence of voter fraud. So
it was interesting this weekend. some of the reporting behind the scenes, I think it was Caitlin Collins with NBC,
CNN.
the White House. Oh, CNN?
CNN, Caitlin.
Wasn't she talking about the conversations that were being had by the president and the first lady, the president and his son-in-law Jared
Who is going to
Kushner?
have the hard talk with
Exactly,
him? He only
saying you
listens to
probably should
family.
concede. And then I was hearing reporting that his sons were the ones who said, no, you should keep fighting. So disagreement, if that reporting is correct, about what will happen. Stay tuned. We'll be here to cover it.
Yeah. All right, you guys. Thank you so much for weighing in. And enjoy the day. It's going to be a cold start.
Yeah, it is.
Snow in the mountains, so be careful if you're headed over the passes. We will see you here tomorrow. Bye.